The Winnipeg Jets officially introduced Scott Arniel as their new head coach, replacing Rick Bowness, who's gone into retirement. John Liu was at the media availability and now joins us. So, John, we've seen Arniel take over a couple of times this past season because of health reasons and because of family reasons for Rick Bowness. Now he's taking over the reins on a full-time basis. How do you like this call, and what do Winnipeg Jets fans think about this?
Well, Gino, it's kind of split when it comes to Winnipeg Jets fans' perspectives about, I don't have a scientific poll knowing what the split is, but I've seen comments on social media, fans saying that they support this simply because Scott Arniel, in his words, has come full circle, that he has a very long history with the Jets as a player with the Moose, a coach with the Moose, and once again as a coach with the Winnipeg Jets, supporting Rick Bowness for the last 2 seasons. And then there are fans who think that, hey, come on, you've gone to the well once again. You're recycling another old Jet. How is that progress? Well, my takeaway from what Scott Arniel was saying today is that he is very grateful for a second chance because he expressed doubts about his ability to get a second chance after being dismissed by the Columbus Jackets 12 years ago. And when you talk about Arniel filling in for Rick Bowness at various points last season and this season, the results show it. You know, that he did very well in Bowness's absence. But when talking with Kevin Cheveldayoff, that was a big selling feature for the Jets GM to promote Scott Arniel, saying that the way that he handled those situations, it was very emotional for the teams, for the team, for the players, for everybody involved, because Rick Bowness was either ill or his wife was ill. And Scott Arniel handled it with a great deal of sensitivity, with a lot of compassion and humanity, but at the same time, he was coaching for Scott Arniel, not for Rick Bowness, that he was coaching in the way that he would had he been the bench boss himself. And so the results showed for themselves that he was able to coach within the system that he helped Rick Bowness devise for the Jets, and that's a big part of why he was hired, why he was promoted for this position, is because the Jets wanted continuity. 2 years ago, they hired Rick Bowness because there was a lot of things that had to be cleaned up, a lot of problems within the Jets dressing room. Different feeling this time around. Kevin Cheveldayoff saying that hiring Scott Arniel is for them to continue to pick up where Rick Bowness left off, to build on the foundation that Bowness left with Arniel's help. And so basically with the team playing a strong 5-on-5 game that it did last season, they want to continue that and just get the team to the next step under Arniel's tutelage.
All right, but he doesn't have a lot of head coaching experience at the NHL level. Loads as an assistant coach at multiple different levels of the game, but really just a year and a half with the Columbus Blue Jackets as the head coach. So the question is, what's he going to have in terms of a supporting cast, and how do Jets fans feel about that?
Well, the supporting cast is only partially determined so far, Gino. Kevin Cheveldayoff said that over this past weekend he spoke with and parted ways with Brad Lauer, the assistant coach, who was taking care of the Jets' power play for the last 2 seasons, and the power play was greatly underachieving, and so they're going in a different direction there. Marty Johnston, one of the assistants, will be back. Goalie coach Wade Flaherty will be back, but Scott Arniel will be hiring at least 1, maybe 2 new assistants, an assistant and or an associate. And he says that since it was announced that he's going to be the new Jets bench boss, he said his phone, in addition to congratulations, has been just ringing off the hook or exploding with texts, basically with guys that are contacts of his, former colleagues who are interested in applying for a job as an assistant or an associate, but also young up-and-coming coaches that he wasn't aware of, that people in the media may not be that familiar with, that are also looking at getting into a position like this. And so for the next week, Arniel is going to be diving heavily into trying to build out his staff, and that's going to be really important for the Jets because, again, when you talk about fan skepticism, if they had run back the entire staff, this would not go over well with the fan base. But the fact is that about half the staff is going to be new. And so there's going to be changes with who's handling the power play, who's handling the penalty kill, the defense, the forwards. There's going to be a different look behind the bench, not just with Arniel in charge, but also Arniel said that over the summer, he described that they're going to have a summer summit with the Jets organization with respect to how they build out their analytics department and how that information is used. And that's going to be really important for the Jets because they are not known as a team that leans heavily on analytics. And so this is something that will be a progression and an improvement for the staff. And so they're going to work on how information is gathered, how it's analyzed, how it's fed to Arniel, and how he disseminates that amongst his players to try to get the most out of their game and using a modern tool that a lot of teams are using extensively to great success, Gino.
Listen, while fans are hearing this, John, they're probably saying, okay, that's all well and good with what's going on with the players and how the coach is going to run the bench, but what about the players? Kevin Cheveldayoff is now taking care of his head coach. Okay, that's done. But up front, Monahan, Toffoli, both pending unrestricted free agents. On the blue line, DeMello, Dillon, Miller, both need new contracts. In the back end, Connor Hellebuck's the only NHL-level goaltender under contract right now. Laurent Brossoit needs a new deal. Chevy's got a hugely busy offseason coming his way. Can you give the hockey fans in Winnipeg any sense of where Chevy's going to head on any one of those different directions?
Well, Kevin Cheveldayoff addressed that, and he said that he's had preliminary conversations with the agents of his pending free agents. Pretty much the list that you mentioned there, Gino. I mean, there's some that we know won't be coming back, like Tyler Toffoli. Good chance Laurent Brossoit will not be back simply because after the strong season he had, he'll be looking to become a #1 goalie once again. But Sean Monahan, absolutely in the Jets' crosshairs that they still want to consider bringing him back as their 2C. Brendan Dillon, Dylan DeMello, a couple of veteran defensemen who form very important roles on the team, not just in terms of what they do on the blue line, but the leadership core as well. They're going to be in the mix as well. But basically, with all the UFAs, Cheveldayoff said that the players, certainly with their exit meetings, they wanted to wait and see what was going to happen with the head coaching position, simply because exit meetings were taking place just before Rick Bowness made his announcement that he was going to retire. And so as a contingency plan, Kevin Cheveldayoff was talking to UFAs, to existing players on the roster, and asking them, picking their brains about, hey, who would you like to see as head coach in the event that Bones does decide to call it a career? And so Cheveldayoff didn't specify how many players or how much support there was for Scott Arniel taking over for Bowness, but the inference was that there was support there simply because of Arniel's familiarity with the players and in fits and spurts, taking over for Bowness, getting results out of the players. And so, yeah, you know what? It's going to be an unfolding story over the next 5 weeks with respect to UFAs. But now that the second shoe has dropped in terms of the coaching situation, that will be a clearer picture, easier for Kevin Cheveldayoff to have those conversations about who's going to stay, who he retains, and who he might pursue, simply because now he knows who his new bench boss is.
Johnny, give me a sense of that market. You were in Winnipeg growing up in that market. You know the organization through and through. You've seen what happened. Hugely supportive when they feel like they've got a good product on the ice and the guys are working towards improvement. But when there is not a good product on the ice, the fans stop coming. We saw a serious dip through the season earlier in the year with the Winnipeg Jets. Is this market full of hockey fans that believe that, yes, this team can return to being highly competitive again next year, or are they worried with so many pending unrestricted free agents about the future?
I think, Gino, there was more of the unknown factor was what was going to happen with the coaching position. And again, that's why to parts of the fan base, Scott Arniel was a bit of a hard sell. But the fact of the matter is that Jets aren't going to be able to prove that until they start playing games. You know, like once we start up again in October. But the fact is that once we go through the free agent season, and look what Kevin Cheveldayoff did last season. I'm not talking free agents that he brought in, but the huge blockbuster trade with Pierre-Luc Dubois, and then buying out Blake Wheeler, and then signing Connor Hellebuck and Mark Scheifele on the eve of the preseason. Well, you know what? Kevin Cheveldayoff may have some impactful moves coming down the pipe heading into the draft. That's going to form a little bit more of Jets fans' opinions on what this team might do, where the direction is going to go. But the fact of the matter is that getting their coaching staff in place before the draft was going to be absolutely essential. And then the rest of it, these pieces are going to fall into place. But the thing about the question in Jets' minds coming out of this season that's only 3 weeks finished is that, can this team take the next step? And that's what these moves right now are designed to address. Bringing in Scott Arniel, he referenced the comments from the players in their closing comments of the season, their exit interviews, where they said they need to come back 5 to 10% better. And he says that's the same thing for him as the new head coach and any of his coaching staff that he brings in that are new or that are returning, that everybody needs to be that much better next season. And one of the big things that he did address when asked about it, it's like, how do the Jets get to the next step? Compete level. We saw it against the Colorado Avalanche, that it was lacking on certain levels and in certain ways, that the Jets absolutely have to realize that playoffs are a completely different animal. They had 52 wins this season. I don't think you can point to any Jets fan that would say that they're unhappy with how they did during the regular season in that regard. But the fact is they fizzled out in the playoffs when they ran into a superior opponent that made better adjustments, that wanted it more than they did. And so that's the journey for Scott Arniel and how he's going to get the Jets there, whether by the coaching staff pushing the players or the players pushing themselves and each other. But again, we're not going to see that until the rest of the picture becomes clear over the regular season and once we get into October, Gino.
Johnny, I'd love to say enjoy the off season, but I get a sense you're going to be really, really busy. Try to have some fun anyway,
so.
Johnny. Thanks, pal.
Thank you, Gino.